Okay, again, welcome to the user conference and the training day. So I can repeat this. My name is Howard. It's on the badge. So this is a training session that we normally try to fit in a full day. It's usually a full day training. So today it's going to be a 3-hour thing, so it's a bit more compact. That's why we planned it without hands-on, but you can, if you have a laptop, you can try to follow some of the things we go through. But that's why we also try to record this, so that you can look at the video later if you want to do some of the things we go through today on your own. And I know the group here is very diverse. There are people who have maybe... Are there anyone who's never ever used Iris, ever? Yeah, a few people, yeah. And then I know there's a few people who've used Iris quite a bit. And then I know that there are, everything. We have people from horticulture, we have scientists, so also very diverse backgrounds. So I think I'm sure I won't satisfy everybody all the time today. So let's put it that way. I will try to start very slowly and then build up. And we're also going to go into some more complicated stuff, just to make the geeks a bit happy as well. So bear with us, and hopefully you will find it useful. Before I go on, I want to say also that we recently had an online training session with a garden in Southeast Asia, which we recorded, and it's on YouTube, and that goes in a much slower pace. So that's like a sort of 6-hour session. So if you're in insomnia or something, it's very, very. Yeah. Anyway, so some of this material is there as well, so you can use that instead of this. I have changed a few things here today as well, so we'll see. So this is we're starting here today, and we will hopefully end up there in terms of complexity and etc. So I'm going to try to start slowly. And if someone feels I speak too fast or whatever, please interrupt. Please ask questions. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the really fundamentals. I'm going to spend a bit of time on that, because there are terms in Iris that are, might be slightly different from what you are used to, and there are certain concepts that are very important. So might be a bit boring to begin with, but bear with me, and then hopefully we'll get into the more sort of practical stuff a bit later on. So, just a few words on Iris itself. Iris was, first version of Iris happened like 20 years ago or something. Øyvind developed that for Oslo Botanic Garden, which is sort of here, up here, yeah. And then I got involved more than 10 years ago. Well, it's slowly grown. We're more than 100 institutions now using this worldwide. Down in New Zealand, all the way to Hawaii, Stellenbosch in Africa, Tromsø. So it's sort of, gardens are using Iris 24/7, maybe. Sort of, yeah. So it's a really interesting crowd with lots of variation in terms of types of gardens. Everything from Queen Elizabeth, well, not her personally, but her staff, to UBC, Gothenburg. It's a large sort of very varied group. There's also some private gardens, etc. So one thing our background, Øyvind, he's a taxonomist and a software engineer. So my background is I have an education in software engineering. So we have a sort of combination of both skills in-house, and that's one of the reasons we think we can sort of do this. One of the challenges with making software for this particular type of field is that it looks very straightforward. How difficult can it be? Plants, I mean, spreadsheet, that should do it. Well, you all know that taxonomy, for example, is relatively complex, and so are a number of those processes that happens in the garden. So we understand quite a lot of what's going on in the botany part, and we also like to have a tight dialogue with the garden, so we understand the problems you are struggling with, and that's why we have this conference as well. So tomorrow we will learn more, hopefully, about all your troubles. We'll see. And hopefully we can help you to, work more efficiently or better. So I want to say a few words about Iris as a software. So in many gardens you have this kind of scenario. You have some person who is considered to be the record keeper. He's sitting there, or she's sitting there on their own in an office. Nobody knows who he is, maybe, or it's very sort of obscure person.
Yeah.
And when people ask, oh, what kind of plants do we have? Oh, I don't know. Go and ask that person, and you go and knock on the door, and you might get an answer, or you may not. That is unfortunately quite. It's not unusual, just because software can sometimes be very difficult to use, or there are other things that makes it very difficult to share the data. So Iris is more than just plant records. We call it a collection management system, so it does more than just looking after, being able to produce a list of what plants you have. Hopefully we'll understand more about that through the day, or through the next hours. In addition, we think it's really important that the staff can take part in not only putting in data, but also using the data on a daily basis. That makes the whole point of record keeping more worthwhile. And in addition to just looking after plants, we want to make sure that, or make clear that Iris can handle all kinds of plant material, not only living plant material, preserved plant material, herbarium, DNA extracts, etc. We also have put a lot of effort in how we handle images, so that is as easy as possible. We'll talk a bit about that later. Mapping. Now that is a field in itself, GIS it's also called. What we've done in Iris is to try to remove all the complexity from mapping, so that it's very easy for you to just, show you, or put a marker where the plant is. And we'll talk a bit about that later. And then I put that as a separate one, data import. That's a kind of tool that some gardens, those who need it, love it. Basically, you can prepare spreadsheets and import data into the system. It's a great time saver, and also very useful in certain scenarios. And then we have a solution for handhelds. We want to talk a bit about it. We won't have any sort of exercise or anything like that for that. And then we have Garden Explorer, which is a website or web app, you could call it, to publish your plant collection so that visitors and other peer people can look at your plant collection online. I know Amsterdam have one, and Leiden is almost there, and so forth and so on. Oslo is here, yeah. So there's about 30 websites out there you can look at. What's nice here is that the data you put in is suddenly available to the visitor, and that changes everything, I think, for a lot of gardens. Suddenly you realize that what you're doing will be available to the world when you've sort of click save, more or less. So it sort of changes the whole, the whole sort of dynamics of collecting data. In addition, there's also an index seminum website, so for those who collect seeds and share that with visitors. And then this is very secure, so that the website has its own database. So you're not thinking visitors are now sort of hacking into your database or anything. They have their own. It's an own secure website. In addition to that, there's also some extra free tools you can download. I'm going to show you a few things there, but there's like a plugin for Excel and so forth. And yeah, it's not so important. So the whole story here is, as you can see, it has a lot of stuff in it. You don't need to know or understand all of it, but the point is that if you need it, it's there. And it's, as far as we know, the most comprehensive solution for gardens today in terms of features. And we're carrying on working on it and improving it. So, yeah. One thing I also wanted to say about Iris, one of our philosophies here is to make it possible for people to be productive from day one. Being able to do basic things should be easy, should be straightforward. However, this software is for, it's also a lot of scientific aspect around it, like taxonomy, etc. So there are certain things that are a little bit complicated, but our goal is that you should be able to start using it relatively straight, after you've gone through a training really, or looked at a few tutorials, you should be able to do a few things. The other thing is that we hope, or we see that clearly, that some users who are keen users, who use it a bit more than just an hour a day, they quickly become advanced and are able to do quite advanced stuff quite quickly. And that's very important. Not only for us in sort of on a personal note, but also for us as a company having customers all over the world in different time zones, if people can't understand what they can do, you know, it wouldn't scale up as a company. We would had like 10 people on the phone every day. So that's very important. And there are also some quite advanced stuff that you can do, and we see that also that there are quite a number of people who are they do things we didn't think you could do. And they are not sort of computer geeks, they are just people who are very keen on plant records. So you don't need to be, you know, have a university degree in software engineering to get to that level. It's just being passionate and digging in there, and hopefully that, so we might have a few here in the audience today, we'll see. What I not to say? Okay. So, I know we are not going into sort of training yet, or we're just going the terms, but these terms are very important. And this is the basic sort of structure of Iris. So, first thing we just mentioned this because it is relevant for some gardens, that Iris can handle several collection sites in one installation, meaning several gardens, really. I don't think there's one garden in the Netherlands who use this feature. In the UK we have English Heritage who've set up Iris for 400 parks. They have 12 historic gardens, so they use Iris, and then they have basically different gardens in one installation. So they share the taxonomy, so it's sort of and other things. So it's very useful if you need that feature. Now, the term. So for each garden, which is this square here, you have the accessions. So I'm going to mention a bit more what is an accession. I might be someone who's a bit unclear about what that means, so I'll spend one word on that. And the accession has the plants or items, which can be all kinds of plant material. So it could be herbarium voucher, it could be DNA extract. That's why it's called items. That's why we don't use the term plants, because it sort of, even though for a lot of you it will be plants. And there is the localities, that's the term used for an area in the wild. So for wild collected material, you record information about where it was in the wild. And that is very useful, you know, if it's conservation material, to have that information in high quality. And then here you've got locations. So that's a garden area, a bed, or a drawer for your herbarium vouchers. So you see here, an accession have one or more plants, and each plant have a location where it is in the garden. And then we have, for each accession, we have a taxa, and that is basically a taxa has several names. It's one accepted name, and then it can have several synonyms. So I'll explain a bit more about that, because that's the most important part of this whole story. And that is when you've said, okay, this is Quercus robur, for example, you've said, okay, we have an accession Quercus robur, and there's a name change in that Quercus, then you will change the names in the taxa. We'll see that a little bit later, so you understand that a bit more. But that's so that's the whole thing. So this is a hopeless definition maybe, but a taxa is a group of organisms seen by taxonomists to form a unit. That's one definition. There's more kind of definitions of that. So it's a very, very sort of vague thing. What is a taxa? But basically, think of it as a plant name. And taxon, yeah, exactly. It's wrong as well. Yeah, yeah, one taxon. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
No. You're absolutely right. That's a plural here. It should be. Well, it's plural in this structure here, so I'm just using it wrong. And so an accession, it's when you get biological material that is of the same genetic source. That is the standard definition. So basically, if you get three trees from a nursery of a given plant, they look the same age. You know, that you ordered them and they came in. They're not of any importance. They're probably not the same genetic material, but sometimes you would be pragmatic and say it's one accession because it's from the same nursery. They're not important. We're going to just use them in outside the garden, and then as a display plant. So you might then just put it as one accession. That is sort of according to how your policy is in terms of how you accession plant material. But the sort of standard kind of idea about an accession is the same genetic material is one accession, and that could be one or more plant material. It could be 20 seeds, then they would be one accession probably, and then you grow them, and then they will get like 10 plants or something. And then items, as I said, they are the plant material that you talk about. Okay, so I'm going to dig a bit more in there, because I've noticed over the years that people are a bit confused, especially if you come from a background without having used Iris. So the discussion between a name-centric or taxon-centric. So a spreadsheet, if you have all your plants in a spreadsheet, you will then put in, this plant is of that name and that, etc., etc. So in Iris, here's an example with leopard lily. I think it's in distribution in, it doesn't matter, in Asia somewhere. But over the years, a lot of authors have been around. I just find, so like this is like 7 or 8 or 9 different genus even. And after DNA analysis in '95, I think, they found out that this is actually the same taxa. All these names used over the years in different parts of the world, and then that's how Iris can manage this. So if you had a spreadsheet and receive plant material, some people say, oh, this is Ferraria crocacea, etc. And then, of course, it turns out that they're all the same. You can see that suddenly becomes a bit complicated to handle in a spreadsheet of lots of data. Now, this is the kind of story that Iris is designed to handle, where you can then say, okay, that's a synonym. Okay, we can merge the names so that all the accessions that were accessions of Vanilla domestica suddenly becomes Iris domestica. So these kind of stories can be quite complicated. But the reason I mention this is that it's important to understand that Iris handle taxa like this. It's like a sort of little abstract little box with lots of names to it, and then that's the name we look at today, Iris domestica. So, okay, so that was the extra slow start. Now we're going to start a bit slow with logging in. So all the examples today, I will use the Iris trial version, so that you can, if you don't have it and want to follow these exercises, you can download this or request access to one, so you can install it.